right, guys, it's time for the debut of Metagame Monday. This is hopefully a recurring series that is going to cover the legacy metagame. Um, I'm I'm still not quite sure how to do it in a perfect way, but I have some solid ideas, and my idea so far is I want to collect all the top eights for the week that has passed. Then I want to highlight the uptrends, highlight the downtrends, and basically focus on the top eights because you can find the raw numbers, the percentages elsewhere, right? So obviously you can find these as well, but I kind of jam them together, say something in general about what's winning these days, what's losing these days, and then at the very end, I'll try and give my suggestions to how do you react to that data. So it's going to be an analysis with my personal take on it. Let's see how it goes. Let me know what you think about it. I could easily improve it along the way. But yeah, why not? Let's just get into it. So first week of 2025, we obviously have some fresh bannings: Psychic Frog, Vexing Bauble, and now today I'm going to cover 5 challenges, 5 top 8s. That's 40 decks. So we can say something general, some tendencies about that. So yeah, let's just get into it. So first of all, this amazed me. We had a ton of Reanimator decks in these top 8s. We had 9 classic Deir Reanimator out of the 40 decks and 2 fast Reanimator decks. That's 11 decks. That's more than 25% of all the top 8s in the year of 2025 has been Reanimator strategies. That means the deck has not only survived the ban, but also for the 3rd time now, first Grief before people caught up to how powerful it was, then post Grief when people thought it was dead, and now post Psychic Frog where people thought it was dead as well. This deck has surprised everyone and keeps racking up wins, even a couple of actual first places in these tournaments. So, as it turns out, it's very contextual. Sure, the deck lost a lot of power level, but if the other decks are not running their, graveyard hate, then the new context is the deck is still powerful. My power goes down, but your respect also goes down, then maybe we're at the same place. Maybe, right? So that is a huge one. Reanimator decks doing super well. Next up is Delver, which put 6 copies in these top 8s. 6 copies is quite a lot. Maybe it's a bit more than I expected. But I for sure expected Delver to be a deck you can go to post Vexing Bauble ban, especially. Because now your daisies are free. People might want to, play a little bit of wacky stuff in a new metagame. Delver's pretty good at being a policeman for stuff like that. Wasteland this, daze that, while attacking with a Channeler or a Delver. I will say the Delver variants are split between Teamer for the Questing Druid, straight blue-red for a better mana base, plays Tamiyo in the kind of grindy slot, and a little bit of Grixis that I have put on the map alongside my good friend Tua. So Delver, definitely a deck to no surprise. Mono Red Stompy has put 6 copies in these top 8s. 6 copies is right about where I would expect it, maybe 4 or 5, but it's in the realm. This deck crushed I believe the showcase qualifier a few weeks ago, and then after that people started playing it a little bit more, then people accounted for it with, your basic lands, careful fetching, hydroblast, stuff like that. And the deck has kind of, I'm not going to say died down, but it's, it's a little bit down, but it's still a very, very relevant player. And putting up these numbers is impressive for a deck like Mono Red Stompy. Then we have an interesting one here, Deir Tempo. So this is basically the deck that existed with Psychic Frog, but just now, does not play Psychic Frog. Maybe plays Orcish Bowmasters in this slot. And I want to highlight this card, Nethergoyf, especially. So Nethergoyf is pretty good when you're playing against, lightning bolts, fatal pushes, stuff like that. So I really like that threat. I also like the fact that this deck can play both Basic Swamp and Basic Island. So all of a sudden you're not weak to Blood Moon. With the Nethergoyf's resiliency, you're good in the Delver Mirror. And then you just have a well-rounded deck. So really, really excited about that one. The Deir Tempo deck put 3 copies in these 5 top 8s. Then at 2 copies, I have a column here. So first of all, Phyrexian Dreadnought is a deck that I'm working on. I saw that somebody took my list and actually won a challenge the day before, as the time of recording. I'm very excited for that one. So Dreadnought is a card that preys a lot on people's removal suite being ill-equipped to kill it. So this could be Lightning Bolt mainly. It's also just a great clock, and it's great when your main deck consigned memory have mileage in the format. So I like Phyrexian Dreadnought a lot, and I'm going to keep an eye out for what people do with the deck, and I'm going to work on it myself. Then we have 2 copies of Oopsal spells. This deck is a weird one because it should be like a house of cards, right? Play some graveyard hate, you just beat it, but it's not really the case. You need the right graveyard hate, because otherwise the Jack-O-Lantern package with the blue instant that shuffles something, Memory's Journey maybe. I always forget the name of that card. Can kind of, be good counterplay against Ghost Vacuum and Fairy Macabre. And yeah, this deck is scary. Kills you quickly. People don't play main deck Force Negations anymore. And yeah, very dangerous deck. And then there's also 2 copies of Painter's Servant, 2 very different versions. And it's kind of interesting how this deck has kind of fallen out of favor. I'm not really sure why. I feel like the deck was very good because blue saw a lot of play. So your main deck Pyroblasts were good. You could play the Akatha's Soul Cauldron because the graveyard was in play so often. And that actually seems to be the case right now. So I can see Painter being on a resurgence. I mean, sure, it lost Vexing Bauble, but I don't think that's the biggest deal for that deck. So these are kind of the decks that did well. We also have some one-of decks like, a Dredge deck. That's fine and all, right? We had an Isid Paradoxical Outcome deck, which is basically a one-ring combo deck. We had one Cephalid Breakfast deck in the hands of Javier Dominguez. So we did have some cool one-of decks, but for now, these are the main players of the Legacy format. Now, the next column is a little bit interesting. So these are what I would call the losers of the current metagame. So this doesn't mean it cannot change. This doesn't mean that this is just how it is. But this is the data for 2025 so far. I have Ugin. I've selected here to symbolize the Eldrazi deck. The Eldrazi deck managed to put 1 deck in the top 8 of all of these 5 challenges, which is really bad conversion rate, 1 out of 40. And I guess Blood Moon has a lot to do with it. Blood Moon being so good in the Ancient Tomb, Pseudomere, could be just enough to hold down the deck, and also between the deck's inability to handle different combo decks, right? You don't know if you need Null Rod, and you don't know if you need Mindbreak Trap, you don't know if you need Graveyard Hate, you don't know if you need Needle Effects, right? So maybe there's too many problems to solve for Eldrazi right now. Next up, and this is very surprising, Nadu in the loser column. So from the decks that I researched here, 40 decks across 5 different top 8s, only 1 deck featuring Nadu is in there, and that's the Breakfast deck. So for some reason, Nadu did not do well the last week, and people were talking a lot about this card. Like, this is the next big thing. Nadu will get banned. It's a foregone conclusion, all of that stuff. So this just goes to show that sometimes it's impossible to predict. We need to see it play out. And that's why Magic is awesome, because sure, you can be the talk of the town, but 1 out of 40 top 8 slots, that's terrible conversion rate. So I expect Nadu to come back stronger, but for now, it's not a problem at all. I picked Forthia Lingus here to represent Control in general, and I think it's fair to say Control has had a hard time for quite a while in Legacy. It mainly suffers from the fact that there's simply too many problems to try and solve at the same time. You have no idea if your opening hand is good. Is this Source of Plowshares good? Is this Terminus good? Is this Forthia Lingus ever going to be good, or is it just a card that'll die within my hand? So Control continues to struggle until we find. I remember back when we had, we had Oko in the deck. Then all of a sudden we had Uro, and then we had, Yorion, and at that point Control was awesome, right? But now very many problems to solve, and it's not looking good for Control. But I hope it comes back stronger. I love that archetype. And I've selected Dark Ritual, which can be a bit confusing, seeing that Oopsal Spells is doing just fine, and so is Reanimator, so maybe I should have picked another card. But Dark Ritual, it's here to represent Storm decks, Doomsday, stuff like that. In these top 8s, only 1 Doomsday deck. made it to a top 8. I mean, Doomsday has been this tier 2, tier 1.5 deck for a long time, but I will say this. It has very dedicated players that, in their hands, Doomsday is a tier 1 deck. So this is what I often talk about when I do coaching, when I do content, that your love for the deck, the practice you put in, can kind of give you a multiplier in how powerful it is. So let's just say I'm a random legacy grinder, I pick up Doomsday. Then I'm going to do way worse than the person who played it for 3 or 4 years. So this is great for the game, but it also means that the finishes are far in between. So Dark Ritual, Storm-based combo, not doing particularly well, but it does have the occasional finish. Last up, I want to talk about Mystic Forge. Mystic Forge is a deck that took Eternal Weekend US by storm. Did not do as well in Europe, but did fine, did good, established itself. But then, Vexing Bauble got banned, and all of a sudden, Mystic Forge is not all that. It turns out that now we're just trying to goldfish, other decks can also goldfish, but they have, disruption, let's say, Reanimator decks, they have discard spells, oopsal spells, they have, free counter spells. So now we're just a slower version of the other combo decks, and we're not all that good against counter magic either, because we just lost our 1 mana defense grid. So Mystic Forge still looking, and I doubt that it'll make a comeback, but who knows. So that's kind of the rundown of these top 8s, and now I'm gonna finish off the show with some suggestions. So what does this mean? So first of all, I have a column here with Graveyard Hate. I have Nile Spellbomb, because that is a card you can actually play in your main deck when you play Nethergoyf in your blue-black tempo decks, and it looks like it just might be time again. Then I have a Leyline of the Void, which is going to be good out of your mono-red decks, basically the Ancient Tomb decks, where you don't want to spend mana to cast Graveyard Hate. Also, it stops Oopsal spells, so that's why I like it a lot. Then we have Ferret Macabre. Ferret Macabre is the uncounterable card that is a very, very tempo-positive play against Reanimator. And it looks like with all of these Reanimator decks taking up almost 30% of the whole top 8s combined of the first week, Ferret Macabre just might be what the doctor ordered. Force of Will days cannot interact. Next up, I have Hydroblast here. This is pretty self-explanatory. We have Blood Moon sitting near the top of the metagame, so hedging against, getting Blood Moon, countering Fable on the stack, killing Bombardiers, countering Pyrogoyf, stuff like that. I think Hydroblast is a safe bet for now. I really like Hydroblast. And last up, we have Hard Removal. So when I say Hard Removal, it's basically non-damage based. It's Swords to Plowshares, kill your Murktide Regent, kill your Dreadnought, kill whatever, no questions asked. And it's Fatal Push, which, Fatal Push will kill Dreadnought, but it also has its problems against, bigger creature like Murktide Regent, etc. So that is kind of my reaction to what's going on here, but especially the Graveyard Hate. I'll say that's important. We cannot just get away with running like a couple of Surgicals and then think we're going to be fine against the metagame. So that was the first episode. I kind of freestyled a little bit and did a solid cool research here that I was going to do anyway, so I might as well let you guys in on my findings. Let me know what you think about this format. When I say format, I mean the video format. And let me know if I missed any obvious trends. In future episodes, I could see digging into actual tech, analyzing actual deck lists. But for now, I wanted a bit of an overview to basically set the table for Legacy 2025. And I hope I succeeded, and I'm very, very excited to see where this metagame goes from here. I also am very excited to, thank you guys for watching, and hopefully see you back next time.